And so I think the talk is, 25 minutes or so. And then I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I'm here at my actually my son and daughter-in-law's house because I'm flying out to a conference. But I have all the time that that you need. So feel free to make a note of a question and ask it when you can think of it. And please also, I got a little notice that my internet connection was unstable. And I'm not sure why, but if please feel free to let me know and interrupt if I'm breaking up, because I can potentially fix that.
So Sarah, I've made you co-host, so you should be able to do your PowerPoint. Okay,
so I'm gonna have a PowerPoint. I've got to, there's a couple, I've got to share my screen and set it up and do all the things. So let me see if
absolutely.
I can.
Take your time.
Let me see if I can get this to work. All right. Screen. Okay, so do you see, I hope you see a beautiful picture of Conway Castle there. Is that what everyone's got?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. So, so I wanted to thank you for inviting me to speak today. I will be talking about my journey from being a full-time mom to an author of over 40 novels and having sold, as Natalie said, over 1 million books, all 100% through self-publishing. In this talk, I'll start with a little bit about me and how I got started, and then move on to some of the specifics of self-publishing. And after that, I'll be, again, happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I wrote the first sentence of my first book on April 1st, 2006, at the age of 37. I suppose at the time, one could have said that was an April Fool's joke on me. At the time, I was a full-time homeschooling mom of 4 kids, and I had decided that I needed to do something that was just for me. I then spent 5 years trying to get a traditional publishing contract before publishing on my own. And that was a transformative decision for me, as you will see. So this is me when I was 4. I was apparently a very creative child, always wandering the swamp next to our house, making up poetry and singing songs to myself. I continued in this vein through elementary school. This is my poetry journal from 4th grade, and an indication that until I was 12, my parents thought I was going to be a hippie. I'm not sure what changed exactly, but around middle school age, I began to focus on school instead. And school happened to be something I was very good at, to the point that I literally forgot about my creative side. In my teens and early 20s, I would routinely say to anyone who asked, I don't have a creative bone in my body. What's more, I believed it. I ended up taking school to its logical conclusion, receiving my PhD in anthropology at the age of 27. However, though I finished graduate school in 1995, I already had 2 children, and I couldn't see myself spending 100 hours a week trying to get tenure. So I ended up not pursuing a career as an anthropologist or ever going back to formal work. Instead, I kept having children, as the 4 you see here, and I homeschooled all of them. But as they grew, I realized that if I wanted my children to be creative and to pursue what they liked to do, I needed to model that behavior in myself. Thus, I started my first book 16 years ago, just to see if I could. I wrote it during the hour and a half that was my youngest child's daily nap, sitting at the kitchen counter with my laptop. I told the older children that they could disturb me only if somebody was bleeding. As they were 8, 12, and 13 at the time, it didn't seem like too much to ask. This first book was essentially Lord of the Rings fan fiction involving elves and magic stones, and it was bad in a way I think a lot of first books are bad. While I had written a 350-page dissertation, Writing 350 pages of fiction was a very different thing. But what this experience taught me was that I could do this. I could write a novel. And because I knew that my first book was bad, maybe in ways that weren't fixable, I decided I needed to write a second book. Once I got started with that, it became clear to me within a very short amount of time that it was better than the first book. And when I finished it, I started submitting it to agents. And please remember, this was 2006. So pre-ebook. I didn't have any other realistic choices in terms of what to do with it. So, and before I get any farther down that publishing story road, perhaps I ought to give you a little bit about what I do, which is namely write books set in medieval Wales. That's Wales, not Wales. I put up this slide because I know when I tell people that my books are set in medieval Wales, there's often that moment of confusion when their eyes cross and they think, medieval Wales. So to clarify, I'm talking about the place, not the mammal. Perhaps oddly, despite this confusion, setting my books in medieval Wales was the first thing I did right for my future as an indie author. So to summarize quickly, Wales is a small country, part of the United Kingdom, and a place they speak both English and Welsh. Medieval Wales was composed of many smaller kingdoms and was eventually conquered by England. In setting my books in medieval Wales, which I'm the first to admit is somewhat is something of an obscure location for Americans, I was able to, in a sense, carve out a little niche for myself. The second thing I did right with this second book was to write something in a definable category, in this case, time travel. The book originated as a dream I had that I drove my glacial melt colored minivan, which is on display right here, into medieval Wales. I didn't end up writing the book about a middle-aged woman, but instead, Footsteps in Time tells the story of two teenagers who time travel to medieval Wales in their aunt's minivan and save the life of the last Prince of Wales, Llywelyn ap Griffith. In terms of the publishing story, I then spent a year trying to get an agent to take the book and me on, clearly not aided by the perceived obscure setting. But in the fall of 2007, now about a year and a half after I started writing, I got an agent who started submitting my book to publishers. What I didn't know then was that for traditional publishing purposes, neither of these two sort of right things that worked out well for my later indie career were enough. In fact, Wales as a niche was seen by traditional publishers as a weakness rather than a strength. So for those of you just starting out, I'm going to give you a quick primer on the way traditional publishing works, at least as I understand it. So the author writes a book, queries an agent. The agent sells the book to a publisher, hopefully. The publisher then gives the author an advance, which is a loan on future earnings, then provides a cover, editing, and marketing, including promoting the book to bookstores. The way I see it now, what traditional publishing also does is place layers between the author and readers and a whole series of people that are required to buy into the book for it to succeed. Thus, for a traditionally published book, you have a chain of connections that go from the author to the agent, to the editor, to the marketing department, and then to the bookstore marketers, and then to the bookstore salespeople, until finally the book can reach the reader. If you ever go to a bookstore again, you might notice what is on the front table. Placement on that table is paid for by publishers. This scenario was what I was going for with my agent. What I got was, a lot of it. As it turned out, for traditional publishers at the time, the Wales element really was a net negative rather than a positive. Marketing departments, I was told, didn't know what to do with it. In addition, my rejections tended to read along the lines of, we don't know what to do with this kind of romantic historical. I ultimately realized whatever they said, it was just another way of saying no. As more and more rejections started to come in, I was contemplating giving up, but my husband, who has been more than supportive of my writing from the start, said, "Give it 5 years." I had a few more to go. One thing I discovered during this process was that a bad agent can be worse than no agent. The first agent closed her business without telling any of her clients in the summer of 2008, leaving me agentless yet again. The silver lining was that getting even a bad agent had freed me to write again instead of endlessly rewriting Footsteps in Time. So over the course of 2008, I wrote another book and then another book, at which point a new agent took me on in January of 2009. So when people outside the writer world think about what being a writer is, all this activity or lack of activity behind the scenes is really never talked about. Nobody knows the struggles and the rejections except sort of as a after the fact, I went through all that and now I made it discussion. The truth is I kept writing books and giving them to my agent, and no publisher would take them or me on. During that time, I wrote the first book in 4 different series because it doesn't do any good to write a sequel to a book you can't sell. Finally, my agent returned one of my last books to me, The Last Pendragon, and told me that he had exhausted every option for it. My decision then was to let it molder forever in the bottom of my laptop with my first book, which still shall never see the light of day. My children know not to publish it after my death, or to publish it myself. By that time too, now the fall of 2010, ebooks existed, but the very idea of publishing one's own books was very much looked down upon. I was told that I would tarnish my name forever, that's in quotations, tarnish, and no publisher would ever look at me again. Well, my books had already been rejected by every publisher in New York, and I am not kidding about that. So I decided, at least with that book, I had nothing left to lose. I decided to give it away for free, just because I wanted anyone, to read it, and I honestly didn't know if it was good enough for someone to want to pay for. Thus, in September of 2010, I uploaded The Last Pendragon only to Nook and set it to free. I subsequently gave away 10,000 copies over the next 3 months. People were reading the book. I was getting fan mail. And then in December of 2010, I received an email from a reader who said, 1, I loved your book. 2, I would have paid for it. And 3, please don't give your books away for free anymore. Well, I still give away thousands of free books every month, but that letter was enough to give me the push I needed. In January of 2011, I decided to become an indie author. So for some reason, it's always been cool to be an indie musician, but public opinion about indie authors has been, in general, far less complimentary. In the past, and certainly in 2011, self-publishing conjured up an image of selling books out of the trunk of one's car. We aren't doing that anymore, however. The digital age has changed everything. So this chart is another quick look at publishing for those, again, starting out or considering even a switch, as to the differences between traditional publishing and independent publishing, again, from the perspective of an indie author. So again, we have the author writes a novel in both cases. On one side, the publisher, again, pays in advance, provides editing, designs the cover, has a large print run with ebooks as an afterthought, even here in 2022. I'm so sorry, I keep doing that. Then they do the marketing for you. And then the author royalty is 14.5%. Now, for an indie author, the writing the novel is essentially the same, but there's no advance. You contract out the editing, you contract out the cover. The focus is on ebooks with print on demand. You market yourself, and the author royalty is 70% of the cover price. At one time, publishers had locked up the distribution system and access to readers, but no longer. Now, by becoming an indie author, I had effectively reduced the middlemen between me and my readers from 5 to 1. So with my newfound courage, I began in January of 2011 publishing Footsteps in Time, Prince of Time, and The Last Pendragon that you see here. That first month, I sold 22 books, all ebooks, 3 to me, 3 to my mom, 3 to my aunt. My daughter would have bought 3, then 2 if she'd had any money or hadn't shared my Amazon account. But then having exhausted the family angle, the next month I sold 52 books and then the next 272 books. Also in March, I published my 4th book, Daughter of Time, the prequel to the After Comedy series, and subsequently in April sold 1,200 books. After that, I never looked back. What's more, by March 31st, 2011, was 1 day short of 5 years to the day that I started writing that first book, which you may recall was on April 1st, 2006. And as you also may recall, my husband had said, give it 5 years. As it turned out, that was the day I got my first paycheck from Amazon for $28. It was also at that point that my teenage son turned to me and said, Mom, you have a real job. By the end of that year, I had published 7 novels, sold 30,000 books, and made $30,000. I do consider myself lucky in many ways. One lucky aspect of all this is that I started writing in 2006 and was rejected for all those years. So by the time I reached 2011, I had a backlist of books to publish all at once. I also count myself fortunate to have started in January of 2011 on the ground floor, so to speak, with a community of writers just like me, all making it up as we went along and sharing what we learned. This chart shows my 5 series and the novels from each that I have written over the last 16 years. The first book in 4 of these series is free, my loss leader for each series, and I've pursued that strategy to hook new readers since I started publishing. Traditional publishing has traditionally focused on the concept of a new release and emphasized above all others the one day that a book comes out. Indie authors are all about the pyramid scheme. And by that, I mean that the book with the fewest copies sold tends to be the newest. Everything is based on moving readers through the series. So of course, the book with the most downloads or sales is going to be the book earliest in the series. Also within traditional publishing, before ebooks, often the first book was out of print before all the books in the series were published. That happens with paper copies. It never happens with ebooks, and thus an indie author's focus on ebooks encourages a very different approach to marketing and sales. And of course, the focus then becomes on writing series rather than standalone novels. Every successful indie author I know who is making a living as an author with their writing as their sole income writes series. Being an indie author, and I would argue that probably this should be the case these days for traditionally published authors as well, means being a small business owner. I had no idea what I was doing back in 2011, only that if I wanted to succeed as an author, I needed to figure out how to wear 2 hats at the same time. One for my creative side that for many years I didn't even know I had, and the other for my organized and consistent side, like I needed to get my PhD and to be a mom. For some people, their skill set is reversed, but everyone needs to blend the 2 in order to become a successful small business owner. And that's really what an indie author is. This chart, which builds on the previous one, shows sales and free downloads of my books over the years. In this case, only through 2019, however, because that's when I hit 1 million sales and multiple millions of free books given away and stopped counting. It is important to point out also that indie math, as I call it, is not the same as traditional publishing math. I don't have offices in New York City to support, for example. Thus, it takes many fewer sales as an indie author to make a living as a writer. But at the end, if you want me to talk through the highs and lows of this chart a little more, I can certainly do that. This one or the one from the previous slide. So this slide is what I call the nitty gritty. The actual publishing of your book may appear daunting as an indie author, but it is nothing more or less than a logistical problem. All the above sites allow you to upload your book for free for distribution to readers. So we have Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Google Play, and Apple Books. They're the big five from an indie author perspective. I use Amazon for hardbacks, which I think personally are beautiful. They've done a really good job with. And then Amazon D2D and Ingram Spark for paperbacks. I upload my audiobooks directly to Audible/ACX, which is their publishing platform, as well as Findaway Books and Kobo. I use D2D or Draft to Digital for foreign distribution only. And again, I must reiterate, the total cost of doing any of that is zero. You only give these distributors money after you sell a book. They take a percentage. And so in most cases, not so much with audiobooks or paperbacks, but with ebooks, they take 30%. And they basically treat your book the same as if it were a shirt or a pair of pliers or a comb. They take 30% of the cover price. The basic book requirements that every indie author needs are someone to edit their book, and sometimes many someone's, a cover designer, and the ability to format the book or contract that out. This can cost an enormous amount of money and time, or none. They also need a website, which can be simple or ornate, and a Facebook author page. All other social media is optional. I put marketing on there too, not really as an afterthought, but because truly that's an entirely different talk and really, really getting into the nitty gritty of being an indie author. I would say that some of the keys to my success have come from, first, being willing to try new things. I put this first because it may be the most important of the business side of writing. Another way to say it is that you have to stay flexible. If something isn't working, try something else. As an indie author, there aren't a lot of rules. Second, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And by that, I don't necessarily mean not going all into Amazon's KU or Kindle Unlimited program. I have chosen to make my books available at all retailers worldwide, but really what I mean is that more income streams are better than fewer. I have paperbacks and hardback books in addition to ebooks. My books are in audio. I now have German translations of one series and French translations of two. That way, if things fall apart in one area, or say Amazon servers go down, you still have income. Next is to focus on what you can control, not what you can't. And that's a message for life, of course, as well as writing. But what I mean specifically by that is to think about the way you set your goals. You don't have control about how many books you sell. You can control how many books you write. Which brings me to number 4 here. Really, the most important point is don't forget to write. That is the foundation of your business, and you can't neglect it. Throughout all these years, I have, in general, written 1,000 words a day, every day. I sit my rear in the chair, and I do it. I know that many people write more sporadically than that and write more words when they do write, but I have found that consistency is what works for me. That consistency goes hand in hand with publishing regularly and providing reliable, high-quality content. Winding up here, I wanted to call back to when I talked at the beginning about the way my books kept getting rejected and how my husband had said, give it 5 years. At the time, I had interpreted that to mean, give it 5 years and see if you're making any money. And as it turns out, I did get that first paycheck essentially 5 years to the day after I first put my fingers to the keyboard. What he meant though, bless his heart, and why I have the best husband ever, was give it 5 years and see if you still love it. Well, it's been 16 years now, and I still do. So thank you. That's the talk. And if you have any questions, I would be completely happy to answer them if you would like.
I have a question. Oh, Diana has a question.
Well, first of all, thank you, Sarah. That hit a lot of the right notes for me. A bit of encouragement right where it was needed. So I think very inspiring and very informative.
Thank you.
My question that just came across my mind as I was looking at one of your slides was your preference for Amazon for your hardcovers rather than Ingram Spark. And did your opinion about that change over the years, or?
Okay, so there's paperbacks and hardbacks, right? So I actually, because Amazon has a very specific system where they always, they make their books, they privilege their books, right? And so I go through Amazon for paperbacks. I go through Ingram Spark for paperbacks. Amazon has a specific thing called expanded distribution. You do expanded distribution through Amazon, you check the box, you get like 32 cents a book, which is ridiculous. So what I did was I went through Amazon to sell at Amazon, and I went through Ingram Spark to sell everywhere else. For hardbacks, which is a new thing to Amazon, I hadn't done them. Well, I had tried to do them through Ingram Spark at one point. I had found the process of uploading to Ingram Spark incredibly frustrating. And so when I'd done like one hardback there and bailed. And so when Amazon actually offered me an opportunity to join their beta for hardbacks, I was like, sure. And it took a lot with the formatting and the covers and all of that. But then I now have them all in hardback and they're beautiful. And so I've decided that I'm just sticking with that and not worrying about the situation with Ingram. I have, like every retailer has their little foibles and quirks. I hate the fact that in order to make changes at Ingram, you have to pay $49. That is just not okay to me. So if I can do what I can do through Amazon, I will. And then through Ingram, you get little codes or coupons or whatever. And so then I do the best I can there. But I didn't want more books there at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's someone who wants to be admitted to the room. Should I just admit them? Yeah, I just did it. Okay. So anybody else?
May I
Yeah,
ask?
go ahead.
I'd love to know about audiobooks. I know nothing about audiobooks.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. So I don't read them myself. I started out in 2014, getting into audiobooks first in 2014. All of my books are in audio now. I hire professional narrators. It's a cash outlay. So initially, again, Amazon or ACX Audible reached out to me and they paid that first narrator for me and they connected me with her. They have a whole system where you go into ACX, get your account, and you say, I want to find a narrator. And you basically, there's thousands of narrators to choose from. And you just look through them until you find somebody that you might be interested in them. You email them, you ask what they think, if they would be interested in working with you. And then Amazon arranges the contract. It's actually great as far as that goes. Again, everyone has quirks and foibles, every retailer. But then I keep the rights to my books myself. They have a royalty share thing. So again, totally free, effectively, you can share the royalties with your narrator. I found after that first book that I wanted to own the rights to it myself. I didn't want to have to be permanently essentially working with the narrator, whoever they are. And so I pay them out of pocket. And then I have the rights to the book myself.
What does a narrator normally cost?
I pay $250 a finished hour. So my books are 8 to 10 hours. So yeah, you can do the math. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I started out paying less, but of course that was also 8 years ago. So the more you pay, ideally, the better your work, better you
Sure.
get, but it just is, it's a crapshoot.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? I can't see, I can only see like half of you. So someone just speak up. So
Okay,
that
I'll
I'll
jump
know.
in.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm Lisa.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for this talk. It's been really informative. And my question is, I can see the value of giving away the first in your series. Could you talk a little bit more about what else you did? How did you get your name out there, or even have people find that your first book was free?
So back in the day, partly the indie book world and the book world in general is constantly evolving. So you have to stay on your toes. Algorithms change, that change. Amazon in particular started out being super supportive of all indie authors and now is only supportive of you basically if you're in Kindle Unlimited. That's not entirely true, actually. It's not entirely true, to be fair. But they, if you go to any of the top charts, the top books, a huge percentage of the top books are in Kindle Unlimited. And that means it's that much harder for people who are actually having people pay for their books to get noticed. So initially I did nothing to get my book out there. I mean, and so it was deeper into that story. 1st of December 2011, Amazon rolled out their precursor to KU, which was called KDP Select. And was basically like indie authors, if you are exclusive to Amazon, you get these benefits. And I had spent, the last year working my way into all of the other retailers, like trying to get high on their list and all this kind of thing. And I just didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. And I didn't want to give up everything that I worked for. And I also didn't want to get paid essentially by the page. I mean, there's because the way KU works is that you don't know how much money you're going to get when someone downloads your book until the end of the month. So they basically, that's how they all work. And Amazon just declares, we're going to pay you 0.049 cents this month. Next month it's going to be 0.40047. I just didn't like any of that. So regardless, I decided at that point to make Daughter of Time, which is the prequel to the After Camari series, free. And Amazon still doesn't let you make anything free. So you have to get it price matched because they're the lowest seller. Daughter of Time went free on the 28th of December, 2011. I went from making $3,000 a month at Amazon in December to $12,000 in January, entirely on the back of that one free book. People found it and they downloaded the paid books, obviously at 3 times the rate that they had been downloading them before that free book. So I'm a total believer. Obviously, I've been doing it now for 11 years. I've got 4 free books plus bundles and all the rest. It makes it really easy for me to market as well because I don't like selling and I don't have to sell. All I can say is, hey, I've got a free book. All you lose is time. If you don't like it, that's no biggie because you didn't pay for it anyway. With the idea that a certain percentage of people are going to like it and they are going to buy the next ones. So that's what happened to me with the free book issue, in which I literally didn't do anything. Over the years, I've had to pay more and more for advertising. So I have Facebook ads, I have BookBub ads, which if you don't know BookBub, they basically send you an email of discounted and free books every day. So you pay hundreds of dollars for one of those ads, and they're vetted and curated, ideally. So I have one coming up on September 28th for The Good Night, which is the first book in my Gareth and Glenn Medieval Mysteries. And so that will go out in an email blast to 1 million people. And, some very tiny percentage of them will download the book, but that is enough to keep getting eyes on it and keep allowing me to make a living off my books. So that kind of thing. And that has changed over time. I mean, I think probably the peak of selling the most with as utterly minimal advertising was about 2015. And then since then, it's been increasingly more difficult. Basically, I feel like I have to hand sell every book. Like back in the old days when people were driving around all these bookstores and hoping people showed up. At least I don't have to do that. At least, at least there is advertising I can pay for. But that's basically what I do now is I say, I have a little Facebook ad running and it says free, download it, Medieval Wales, try it out, So yeah. John,
Thank
did
you.
you have a question?
My question was in regards to series. So you said you like the first book in each series of 4 series. Did you outline the entire 4 series for each series and then break it up and had an outline?
No.
How did you go about doing that?
No, so I've been writing for 16 years. The After Comary series is 20 novels long. It's 19 novels long. I've got a companion version, companion book to the series as well. So, I had ideas about where we were going, probably for the first couple books. And I tend to plot out a couple books, at least, okay, I'm even not a plotter, I'm more of a pantser. But I have the overarching vision of where the series is going, often several books in advance. But it's not like Harry Potter where she wrote the last line of book 7 and put it in a safe to be hauled out, 15 years later. Nothing like that. I mean, early and things evolve over time. So early on, again, for like the After Comary series, I had like the first 4 books pretty clear of like where we were going to go. But I'm aware that as an indie author, I get to do what I want. And so I could stop this series at any time. And I make sure that I don't leave my readers hanging. Like every book is a complete story for the most part, unless I'm sure that I'm doing the next one, in which case, someone has just time traveled somewhere and I'm like, oh, there it is, cliffhanger. 2 of my series are complete. So one is, and they're actually 2 series of novellas, or short novels, I guess, 40,000 words-ish. The Lion of Wales series and the Last Pendragon saga. So one's 5 books, one's 8, and they're done. So I'm currently working on 3 series at a time. The After Comary series, the time travel one, and 2 mystery series, Gareth and Gwen's and the Welsh Guard. The Gareth and Gwen's, I just put up the pre-order for book 15 in that series. And the Welsh Guard mysteries, I just started book 4. And part of that as well is like, that's real history. So that the other 3 were more, what I always say is that it's as historically accurate as I can make it, except when it's not. But it's about King Arthur, like what's the real history there, right? The time travel ones, it's really alternative history, spoilers. So like I'm on a trajectory that did not happen in real history, but the mysteries, both of them are solidly set in what really happened in 1143 Wales, what really happened in 1284 Wales. So the historical story arch is laid out for me. All that's required of me is the mystery set within the context of that historical event. And so my work is also centered around Wales when it was independent from England, which, most people don't even know. It's not like Yorkshire. It's like an independent country, independent people, separate language, separate culture, all of which was deliberately the English attempted to destroy 1,000 years, 800 years ago. I mean, it's fascinating watching what's going on right now with the Queen. I mean, nothing against the Queen or Charles or any of them, but 1282, when in Footsteps in Time, when my teenagers travel back and save the life of the last Prince of Wales, Llywelyn ap Griffith, he was the last Welsh Prince of Wales. So when King Edward had his son, Edward II, born at Carnarvon Castle, which he is building to dominate the Welsh, he designated his son as the Prince of Wales. And ever since then, the Prince of Wales has been the son of the English king. And so when Charles designated William and Kate, Prince and Princess of Wales, without even sending an email to the First Minister of Wales. And it's just like, are we still doing this? Yes, we are. We apparently are still doing this. And so, like that's the context by which, in which I write. But I'm writing about the events where that oppression, Wales is England's first colony. That's where I write my books, is at that point. So the history is really, Henry the Third or Second gathered an army of 30,000 men to march on Wales with the express purpose of wiping them out. 1165. Oh, I get to write about that. So that's that part of the series. And then the mysteries follow in both the Gareth and Gwen's and the Welsh Guard. The two detectives are invented. So we have Gareth and Gwen and Rhys and Catrin doing their thing. So their story arc is invented. And so that's I have to come up with. But again, I know the sweep of it. That was a very long answer to your question.
Separate mystery for each book that gets resolved, and then that could be the end of the output. Then you have the next one.
Right. So the mysteries are complete stories. You can pick up any of the mysteries essentially at any time, and the mystery is solved. The story arc, of course, if you read the 10th one, you're going to come in and be like, on a certain level, who are these people? And I refer to, somebody had a baby, somebody this thing in a previous time. But yeah, the mysteries are complete in that regard.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I can't see, so just speak up if you have something you want to ask.
I have a question. Do you carve out, or do you know every day what your writing schedule is going to be? Do you know that you're going to write in the morning or you're going to write in the evening? Have you organized your writing life like that?
Yeah, I treat it like a job. So I get up in the morning, I make my coffee, I go to my desk. I very much try to write first thing because it's a creative endeavor, obviously. And if I sap it with Facebook and email and, all the business stuff, then I lose that moment. So I do. It's 1,000 words a day is 4 pages, 4 double-spaced pages. And in my head, especially when I'm writing a new book, it's like if I were at a job, I treat it like a job. And actually, as it turns out, so I have 4 children, all of them, my youngest son, the one whose nap I was writing during 16 years ago, just went off to college. So we have now an empty nest at home. And I, as the 16 years have gone on, my work has expanded to fill the available space. And so, what I did when he was 4, obviously very different than when he was 17. And now he's gone to college. And so I wake up and it's like, well, I guess I'm writing this morning. But yes, I have been known to write at all hours. And if I don't get the 1,000 words done in the morning, there are, it's 2 in the afternoon and I'm like, I just 100 more words. I'm going to try something, but my creative bit is first thing in the morning. And so I do try to do that.
Another question for you, Sarah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that when you sell your books, you sometimes bundle them. How do you bundle books for sale, like on Amazon and things like that? Or is that something else that you do?
Yeah, well, it's a file, right? So you just take, so I have the first 4 books in this series and as a bundle, the first 3, and you just attach them as a file, and I call them, the Gareth and Gwen Medieval Mysteries box set, and you put them up for sale. And again, since it's free, you got to get a separate cover for it. But, I have a whole bunch of bundles and I do free bundles too. So I have those first 4 books bundled together. It's called Guardians of Medieval Wales. And then it has the four books in that series, and you can go just download all 4 at once if you want. Again, free. So bundles are, I think it's like if you're thinking in terms of traditional publishing, or paper, that's such a different mindset than an indie author with ebooks. It's ebooks, ebooks, ebooks. 95% of my money comes from ebooks.
You're
And
distributing those through Amazon, or how are you distributing your bundles from your website purchases?
all all retailers. So you upload to Amazon, Kobo, Barnes and Noble, Apple, Google Play. And you just like, literally you go to the site and it says, okay, so, and if it's say you're going to do it at Kobo and it's Kobo Publishing, and you go in and it says, start a new book, click. And then you say, what's the title? Here's the title. You know, what's the blurb? Put in the blurb. These are 4 books, blah, blah, blah. Upload the book, upload the cover, charge free, hit publish. You are literally done. That is all that it takes. And then they put it on their website. And people can download it. So you know, it is literally that simple. It's as I said, a logistical issue to publish books. Getting anyone to look at the cover, now that's a different thing. But in terms of the actual publishing of it, you can do literally anything you want.
All 4 ISBN numbers in that front page when you do all 4 books at the same time.
Well, I'm sorry, what did you say?
So yeah, like the 4 ISBN numbers for each one of those.
I don't do ISBNs. I don't care about ISBNs. I don't do them at all. I have to have them for Ingram Spark in order to publish them. But it says, you know, Amazon free. Actually, Amazon for ebooks says an ASIN. Kobo and others. If you want to do an ISBN, you can. But I just say, I'll take the free one, thanks. I bought, you know, 100 ones from Bowker or whatever. But I use them only for the paper books and only for Ingram Spark because it's required. You have copyright. You don't have to worry about copyright. I copyrighted all my stuff initially, and now I don't bother. You know, I don't worry about plagiarism. I don't worry about pirating at all, literally at all. And yeah, so no, I just don't, you just like, I mean, you can put in your own ISBN if you bought it, but I don't worry about that.
Thanks again.
Hey, Sarah, I wanted to plug something of yours that I've had for a few years since the HNS conference. I don't know if you guys can see it, but her book, this one that I got was called This Small Corner of Time, and I'll put it in the chat. The After Kilmary?
Yeah, Kilmary, yeah.
Kilmary series companion. This is a valuable book for us historical writers because she not only gives you family trees, she covers in that whole series maps, timelines, everything. I mean, I just looked at it and I said, this is gold in itself. So
I put it in the chat here. I put a link to Amazon.
Great.
Yeah, and a link to the book on Amazon. It's also available at Google Play.
Awesome.
And Google Play in ebook form. And I must say, so it's a beautiful book. I didn't design it. My husband actually designed and took all the pictures and did all the maps. He's a geographer by training. And so it's like a textbook. It's a fixed width book. If you have it's beautiful on a phone, it's beautiful on a Kindle Fire or any kind of colored device, you know, like one that has color. You can't buy it on a paperweight or a non sort of tablet type device or in paper. And so, but yeah, we did it after book 15 to give people a chance. And it's like I downloaded my brain
Excellent. Absolutely. It's just a great template for historical writers. Really, they're doing a series. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for it. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, thanks. But the link is there in the chat if you want to just sort of see.
Super.
There's it should link you to the Kindle version, and there's a paperback version as well, just to check it out. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah,
Uh-huh.
do you have a favorite editor that you use? And
so that's the whole thing. I have at various times paid for editing and copy editing, and currently I am using my what I call posse of highly educated family members, mostly family members, some friends, some beta readers, to edit it. My husband is my first reader. The book that I just put the pre-order up for Christmas Day, which I am working on simultaneously with a new one. He read a couple of weeks ago and just ripped apart, which is his job. It's painful for both of us, and I pace around and I curse his name. And then I get back to the computer. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's actually right. So I find people that I trust over the last 16 years. And so so both my parents have died. And so they were crucial readers, but I don't use them anymore. Dan's mother was an editor actually at one time. So I use her. My sister is a doctor. I went for my murders. You know, she reads it. She's reading it now. My daughter majored in medieval Welsh history in college. So she's a reader as well. And then I have other people to do the copy editing or that kind of thing. So it's you know, there are, once you get into it, there are sort of yellow pages for indie authors at various places. If you've never been, the Writers Cafe at the Kindle Boards has the yellow pages. There's a Facebook group called Indie Writers Unite that has the yellow pages. I'm a member of Novelist Inc. I'm going to the conference on Tuesday. They have yellow pages. So just like both cover artists, copywriters, editors, developmental editors, you know, all the different things. So yeah, again, it's kind of a logistical problem. You know, it's the writing the book. The commitment is writing the book and then deciding to do it yourself. And after that, you know, I actually would recommend, by the way, for anybody who's doing this, there's a book called Let's Get Digital by David Cochran. Full disclosure, he's a friend of mine, but he came up with me in 2011 as well. And it's just really good. He's got a whole series of books about everything from actual the nitty gritty of publishing to how to do BookBub ads, how to do Amazon ads, how to do Facebook ads. That I would recommend. Anything that he's done is very helpful. And he's got an email list that I'm on as well that's gives it to you for free. So you could try that too.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. You're muted, Natalie.
Yeah.
There you
Any
go.
more questions for Sarah? Okay. Looks like that's it, Sarah. Thanks for a great presentation. Thank you for taking the time to do it. Really.
Sure. You're most welcome. All right. Well, thank you. And good luck to everybody.
Same to you. Thank you very much. Take
Okay.
care.
Bye-bye. Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.